Hey guys, I just wanted to give a shout out to Carter, also known as Millennium Man, who helped me out with making this video. He uploads almost every day and creates some pretty good content, so be sure to subscribe to him. But with that out of the way, let's get on with the video. Many classic wooden coasters operate throughout the United States. Though events like the Great Depression took away many of these coasters, the few that continue to operate are well regarded and fun experiences with simple but enjoyable layouts. However, these coasters were usually very small when they were built, often being under 100 feet tall, and the layouts were relatively short most of the time. Mostly. Enter the giant Skyrocket, a wooden coaster reported to be longer than the Voyage at Holiday World at 6,600 feet long, and described as the biggest coaster in the South. This coaster was an absolute beast with 2 lift hills and a wonky layout and a relentless experience. Though this ride was a legendary experience for its time, it's been forgotten about ever since its closure in 1963. So what was this coaster like? Why was it forgotten about? Let's look into it.
This ride opened in 1924 after being manufactured in St. Joseph, Missouri at Lake Contrary Amusement Park and sent to and built at Luna Park in Texas for the cost of $75,000. While we do not know everything about the ride, it was believed that the ride had a track length of 1.25 miles or about 6,600 feet. If that is true, that would mean that this coaster is longer than the Voyage at Holiday World, which I find to just be absolutely insane. Though there is a chance that this length is heavily exaggerated by the people who built it, since there's such little information on it, but with the size of the layout and the few pictures we have, this claim is arguably still highly believable. It's also said that the ride has a second lift hill, and with only a 90-foot drop, you can easily see why this ride would have needed one. Though no photos of this lift are known to exist, and the lift's presence has never been fully confirmed. Finally, the first drop looks to be absolutely insane. Clearly being at an alarmingly steep angle of descent, the airtime on this hill looks unbelievable, and based on the year that this coaster opened, this coaster probably had very minimalistic restraints or no restraints whatsoever, adding on even more to this already monumental first drop.
The ride itself was very intriguing. After a stretch of what appeared to be a section of straight track, the coaster would climb up a 110-foot tall lift hill before the incredibly steep drop. Interesting fact, in the year 1924, the year the ride opened, there was an accident involving 2 passengers falling out of the ride, which actually happened on this very first drop. That's sure to scare the GP away. All jokes aside, the airtime honestly looked... It truly must have been insane, but after that, the ride would go over 3 airtime hills before entering a 90-degree turn at the top of the 3rd hill before entering a series of airtime hills and a turnaround, where the ride would then travel back the way it came, forming an L-shaped out-and-back layout similar to that of Intimidator at Carowinds, which still operates today. But nevertheless, it's not really known how powerful the airtime outside of the first drop would have been, but you could argue with the steepness of some of the other drops in the photos that it could have been very great, but the hills are also so tall, the ride could have simply crawled over them. But there's likely no one alive who has written it in its original form who has done the old folks home and barely remembers any serious details, so yeah, we just don't really know.
In the early 1940s, the park, which was renamed to Venice Park, was closed, resulting in the ride being homeless and possibly torn down, but thankfully, it was relocated to Playland, another park in Texas, where it was unfortunately downsized to only around 2,000 to 3,000 feet in track length. The ride only had 1 lift hill at this point, and the drop was not nearly as steep. The overall layout was a lot more basic, and the ride was unfortunately a shell of its former self, making it much less of a special or notable ride. The ride would continue to operate until around 1963, where things only got worse when it suddenly ceased operation, before part of the ride was torn down in 1964 and the rest was completely demolished by 1973 after the park itself closed in 1967. The ride was ultimately scrapped entirely and was never relocated again. Sadly, we lost what was the remainder of what was most likely a legendary coaster. This ride seems to have been forgotten for two main reasons. First, information of the ride is very obscure, with the information we do know being very unclear and imprecise. As well, there are almost no photographs of it in existence, and there are a lot of details which are actually considered not entirely verified, even if they seemed to be true, like the second lift hill. So with such little info, it makes it very easy for people to not focus on this or really find out about it, especially since it closed more than 50 years ago. And second is that the ride was downsized in the 1940s, making it much less noteworthy or significant, and thus less likely to be noticed by anyone since it was not nearly as much of an impressive coaster as it was before, and it allowed the ride to be much more easily forgettable. I'm personally very sad that this coaster is forgotten. If we had more photos or evidence of this ride, and if more people talked about the ride more, it most likely would have been remembered as it should be. It's also really unfortunate because in Giant Skyrocket's original form, it looked to be on a level of insanity that no ride will likely ever come close to matching. When you combine some of the most daring elements out there, an outrageously long ride duration, and extremely minimalistic restraints, you have a true gem of a ride that will terrify even the most seasoned of coaster enthusiasts. I truly believe that Giant Skyrocket is the best defunct coaster out there, and possibly the best coaster to ever exist.
Alright everyone, I hope you liked my collaboration with Millennium Forceman. Be sure to sub to his channel so you can hit 200 subs. If you like more from this series and other stuff from this channel, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell. All feedback is highly encouraged and appreciated. Let's get to 100 subs by the end of September. I'm already 2/3 of the way there, and I cannot wait to hit that milestone, so let's try and hit that point. But anyway, that'll be all for today. Peace out.